Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to see many friendly faces here, many familiar faces, and some new faces. I'm Meg Disler. I'm the Executive Director of the St. Joe Community Health Foundation. And the St. Joe Community Health Foundation is very proud to be able to invest in and partner with some wonderful agencies in this community, really welcoming immigrants, refugees, asylees, a lot of people not born here, but are coming and strengthening our community. Today's panel, I am especially excited to hear what they have to share with all of us. We have two very special women who are going to present to us. Allow me to tell you a little bit about them, and then I'll turn it over. First, we have Ann Hain. Ann is the Executive Director of International House, and she has been on staff at iHouse since 2015. She has traveled overseas listening and learning in places like China, Laos, Thailand, Ethiopia, Haiti, Belize, and Brazil. Her most recent trip was traveling to Jordan to work with Syrian refugees. But she loves being in Fort Wayne, and we love having you here, and meeting people who've been resettled into our community. Ann is certified in classical trauma healing for both adults and children, and TEFL certified. She also serves in the Amani Family Justice Task Force. Along with Ann is Heather Morris, who is the Director of Operations and Outreach at International House. Heather joined the iHouse staff in October 2016 after working cross-culturally in several different capacities. She has traveled overseas in several medical mission trips, and her most recent trip was traveling to Jordan to engage with the Syrian refugee population living there. As the Director of Operations and Outreach at iHouse, she spends a lot of her time in direct contact with the local refugee and immigrant population. Heather is a part of the Amani Family Justice Task Force and is certified in classical trauma healing for both adults and children too. I'm going to turn it over to these ladies. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ann. I didn't know who is who. I felt like I should say who is who. So thank you, Meg, so much. Welcome to the Northeast Indiana Immigration Network's fourth quarter session. We are so proud to partner with St. Joseph Community Health Foundation, Amani Family Services, and Catholic Charities in forming this new level of commitment and collaboration and working to serve immigrants and refugees in the Fort Wayne area. Each organization continues its individual mission of serving the community in its unique way. However, we partner together in increased ways to make immigration and resettlement in Fort Wayne better for all involved. And we are glad that you are here and hope that you will leave here feeling better equipped to meet and greet and listen and learn and live in community with people from around the world. In our city, there are approximately 35,000 refugees and immigrants, and they come from places like Myanmar, Yemen, Afghanistan, Sudan, Chad, Venezuela, Ukraine. Doctors, teachers, farmers, lawyers, and business owners are resettled in Fort Wayne with a variety of statuses: refugees, asylum seekers, immigrants. And they come from a variety of socioeconomic, religious, and educational backgrounds. They bring with them diverse cultural traditions, native dances, rich histories, and they absolutely bring some of the best culinary dishes from around the world. And our refugee and immigrant friends, they often speak more than 2 languages. Many have mastered 5 or more different languages and dialects. But they also bring with them fears about the future, a need to learn English, a desire to fit in while keeping their traditions alive, questions about the community, concerns for their children, and often trauma experiences that can be difficult to process while managing all of the other needs that are around them. The number of forcibly displaced people in the world has risen from 42 million people in 2019 to in 2009 to 110 million today. Less than half of 1% of the world's refugees were resettled in 2022. This means that 1 in every 74 people in the world are forcibly displaced by war, persecution, generalized violence, and gross violation of human rights. 51% are girls and women, and 41% are children. Our world offers 3 solutions to forced displacement. First, they could return home, but this requires the cause of displacement to have been resolved. And the UN has identified over 30 protracted refugee-producing situations in the world. The average durations of these situations is 26 years. So returning home is not an option for the vast majority of refugees. They could integrate into the country of refuge, but more than 8 of 10 refugees are hosted by developing nations that are economically and socially unable to absorb the people associated with refugees within their borders. They could also resettle to another country, but during an average year, less than 1% of the world's population is resettled. Few countries are willing to help by offering the resettlement option to refugees. When we strip away the word refugee, there is a human who walked away from everything. When they arrive in Fort Wayne, how will they be welcomed? As another, or as an integral part of the economic and cultural growth in our city? We are all immigrants to this country. Unless you are a Native American, your ancestors were immigrants. So the definition of an immigrant is a person who comes to live permanently in a foreign country. A refugee is somebody who has been forced to leave their country in order to escape war, persecution, or natural disaster. Unfortunately, refugees are often viewed only as people in need. And they do have needs, this is true. But they also bring with them economic growth, diverse talents, and skills that contribute to the community. 24% of Allen County's economic growth was due to immigrants as of 2019. Building bridges of love with people while supporting recovery work helps rehumanize people and restore hope by strengthening community, faith, emotional well-being, and personal capacity. And this is our mission at International House.
So iHouse was started in the late 1990s by our founder, Brenda Neuenschwander. She was asked to teach English to a Bosnian refugee. Brenda was a social worker and had never taught English before, but this woman assured her, you can speak English, you can help teach English. Little did she realize that this woman would go on to have friends and family that also wanted English help, and so Brenda enlisted the help of her own friends and family, and a ministry was birthed. And we are now located in a residential area that we moved to in 2004, and it's a home, and it's that way for a reason, so that we can offer hospitality and let people feel safe when they come. Along with that, we have a lot of people that we meet in their homes, and this is where the majority of our relationship building takes place. We consider it a sacred honor to be invited to these homes. We are frequently treated to radical hospitality by being served a variety of foods and beverages that are familiar to our friends from their home countries. We enjoy a variety of teas and coffees, juices, and we usually end up even with a water bottle placed in our hand so that we are fully hydrated on the way home. Our palates have tasted foods from so many countries, way more than we ever could have dreamed of living here in Middle Eastern Indiana. And how lucky we are to get to experience such delightful flavors right here in our own city. Through the years, we estimate that we have interacted with roughly 6,000 different refugees and immigrants in the Fort Wayne area. For some of these people, it was just for a season, maybe to help them pass their citizenship exam and sharpen their English skills and learn enough about our government so that they could pass. But for others, it's been over a decade long of friendship, where we have held their newborn babies, we've brought their children to our kids' camp, we've celebrated milestones like graduations and weddings, and watched them launch into adulthood to forge their own paths as ones that we call third culture kids. They have their parents' culture that's ingrained in them. They've lived here long enough to adopt American culture, but this makes them very unique because they've developed their own culture along the way. Being part of the lives of these families has been incredible because we've been allowed to look behind the curtain, or the veil, if you will, as we enter their homes and gain trust, and where they get to ask questions and we get to ask questions. Sometimes it's things that they need help with, like, how do I know what soap to buy at the store when there are so many choices? What are taxes, and how, where, when, and why do I pay them? Which doctor would be best to take my child to? I'm having trouble with my stomach. Can you please help me figure out what's wrong? Or even sad times like, my mother is very sick in my home country, and I don't know if I'll ever get to see her again, and I am sad. Why is this happening? Some of these questions we do not have answers for. Sometimes all we can do is offer a listening ear and an invitation to pray with and for them. But we don't take it lightly that we have been invited into this private space, and we do see it as an honor because building trust and friendship takes time and genuine intention. Everyone can spot a fake, and no one's going to be real if they don't feel truly seen and heard. But maybe you're wondering, how in the world do we end up meeting so many people? Oftentimes, it's because we've met someone that's been here for a while, and they find out someone new is coming and say, would you come meet our new friends? What benefit that is to us, because that gives us established trust right walking in the door. Before I started at International House, I thought I knew what hospitality was. I had done some traveling for missions in the past and considered myself to be in the know what proper hospitality would look like. But if I'm being honest, the hospitality I had offered to others was greatly lacking when I compare it to what I receive in the homes I visit now. So when I say hospitality, I mean that you are welcomed inside, you take off your shoes, you make eye contact, you exchange warm greetings, you're asked about how you are, how your family is, and then a tray is often brought out with tea or coffee cups. You're asked, do you want sugar to go with that? Then another tray comes out with snacks or food. And just when you think you've drank enough of that lava hot liquid, it gets refilled to the top again. So don't think that you're going to visit for just 20 minutes, because that would be rude. Why would you even bother dropping in? You plan for at least an hour, and 2 to 3 would be great. Because you see, we have watches and schedules and agendas, and our friends have time. And they see relationship building as so important. The hospitality is a compulsory part of life, whereas sometimes in the past we might have seen it as an interruption to our schedule. But I've learned a great value in dropping my agenda and sometimes just sitting and visiting and wholeheartedly listening. It's led to many relationships that are now like family, and this is dear and near and precious to me. And it doesn't happen all the time with every person, because it would probably be less amazing if it did. But our refugee and international friends, most of them know how to welcome us very well, and we have a lot to learn from them. I would now like to introduce my friend, Ahmad Shah Hashemi. We met 2 years ago when he arrived to Fort Wayne with many other Afghans. He has done an outstanding job of acclimating to Fort Wayne and navigating so many unfamiliar systems here, like getting work authorization and getting a job and getting a driver's license, applying to college, moving out of an apartment and into a home. And all the while, he's been a very good friend to International House and his fellow Afghans by helping to translate and sharing his own experiences, giving of his very valuable time and talents to assist in making a smoother transition for others. So would you join me in welcoming him to come up and share with us? should add, he just left work to come here and join us.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much for having me and giving me the chance to talk. And I'm sorry, I just left my work and I just came. Anyway, my old boss is here around. Most of you know me, but I introduce myself. My name is Ahmad Shah Hashimi. I'm from Afghanistan. I graduated from school in 2010. Then I was teaching in school and private courses, and I spent a part of my life with my father. He was a mason, a construction worker, and I helped my father, and also I tried to continue my education. After many struggling, I wanted to join the Afghan Air Force. Then I succeed and I joined the Afghan Air Force. I have studied there for almost 3 years. After completing 3 years, I succeed for a scholarship to Slovakia. I was a maintainer of Black Hawk helicopter. And in March 2021, I traveled to Slovakia. In 2021, when I spent 5 or 6 months in Slovakia, back in Afghanistan, the government changed, and we stopped all education in Slovakia. Then the Slovakia embassy and we were with the Raytheon company, and our American instructor, they decided to travel us to United States. I arrived at the end of December 2021 to United States. I spent 21 days in Virginia. After that, I directly came to Fort Wayne, and I started my living in Fort Wayne. This is my journey, that how I came to United States. The reason I'm here, I want to talk to you about a good points about the Fort Wayne, how as an immigration view, how the people consider Fort Wayne to choose as their life, to spend their life here, or to choose this place as their own home. There are many reasons. The first reason, Fort Wayne is a diverse population, a home for diverse population. If you go to the north, if you go to the south, east, you find many people from different countries. But these diverse population, it means like a flower, different flower in a garden. If you visit a garden with different flowers, you enjoy a lot. These people has a basic rule in making this community for improvement and investment for this community. And the other reason, Fort Wayne is a good improvement for immigration people. All immigrants people try to travel to Fort Wayne. The reason why they travel to Fort Wayne is a low-cost place, an affordable place especially for immigration people. When people are new arrive in the United States, they face too many challenge, and they struggle to get their life self-sufficiency and be stable, and they should be able to send their kids to school. Fort Wayne is a best place for those people. And other than, there is another good reason. We have a very high automation companies in Fort Wayne, around Fort Wayne, which is running. Like BE system, which produce a very high aircraft aviation equipments. And we have Fort Wayne meters, which they make all medical stuff. It's very high quality companies are running in Fort Wayne. Many others, this is the example. If you travel, you can find many big companies which is being active in Fort Wayne. People like it because when they get here, they find a job. In a few years, they learn more skills, money skills. People like it because the only reason when the immigration people first think, how should I learn a skill to support my family and my life? When people have a job, when people have a good income and support themselves, this is a sign for improvement of this community. That's the other reason people like it. Another reason people like Fort Wayne, it's a very quiet neighborhood. I have been living in Fort Wayne for 2 years. I never hear any crimes. Maybe we hear some shooting, but that's for enjoyment, not for killing the people. It's a very quiet neighborhood. I like a lot. We hear, when I was in a military base, I hear a lot. If you go to this state, there is such crime. If you go to the other state, there is another such crimes. But still, I'm so happy and I appreciate these people. They work very hard. I see everyone working hard and they try to get a part for improvement of this society and this community. And also, people like it is having a freedom, religious freedom, life freedom, everything. You can go to school, learn any skills, and you can everything. You can. It's up to you. Send your kids to school, and you can learn other things. Even you can find it free. The other good things which I ask many people. Once I visit one of my friend, and he was talking to me and told me, I have been living in United States for 25 years. I travel to many states. I spend my life 3 years, 4 years with different states. But I wasn't able to buy a house. When I came to Fort Wayne, within 2 years, I could buy a house. It's a good reason for immigration to choose this place and live here. And they have religious freedom. Everywhere you go, you see Muslim people, Christian people, any people from different religions, but they are so kind to each other. They learn from each other. They assist each other. But a few things I want to add. What should we do to improve this environment and make it better and better? The first thing, I'm a refugee. I know what's our needs and what should we do. The best thing, we have to make a good relationship. We should be a good neighborhood. When I find a job, my neighborhood helped me. He came to me, he talked to me, and he showed me, and even he bring me the application and he showed me how to fill it, and then I find a job. For immigration people, make a good friendship that's help them a lot, and send their kids to school. Most of the parents, when you see them, they cannot read, they cannot speak. But after a short time, when the kids go to school, they can read, they can facilitate their problems, like how to pay the bill, how to read. When in a mailbox they receive something, they know what's exactly about what this later coming to us. The best reason, Fort Wayne has a very high quality schools everywhere. We see the result in a very short time. We see the result, how the kids improved, how they learn faster, how they grow. It means like Fort Wayne all school is with very high quality schools. And other things, when I visit Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I visit last month my friends, and I told them, what is the cause that Pittsburgh is famous? What make it famous? They told me the there is a place we call gymnasium. This place make Pittsburgh famous. The reason why I mentioned that, let's try to create educational and sport competition between these people. If we launch many games in Fort Wayne, each family come to that game and see they enjoy their life. Create competition between the people and educational competition, and try to bring many skills from other places to this environment to improve this society. And they should learn a career and building a career. I think Fort Wayne is a good place. I ask many, I have my friends in every state almost, because we were 50 students and 50 classmates, but the UCIS sent it as 1, 2, 3 to every state. Now we are in contact with each other. When I'm telling something about Fort Wayne, about the low cost of education, about building a career, they are excited. Even if you hear about that state, they are very high quality states. But we have good opportunity right here. One example is the Antis Career Center. I asked many other friends in other states. There is no any Antis Career Center in other states. It's a good place for immigration to learn and build a career. You can find such places, many other places, but I just came from work. I don't remember all the names to mention. And it's a good place to build a career, and I'm very thankful for Fort Wayne people. They are very welcome people and very nice and kind people. And thank you so much for giving the time to speak and talk to you. And also there is many organizations active in Fort Wayne. They help a lot, really help a lot the immigration people. I'm very happy from those organizations, and I wish they improve, and I ask them to help more and to be active more and stay beside these immigration people, because these people need your help. Without this organization, I think these immigration people came to this environment, they face many challenges. But the good thing, these organizations stay beside them and they solve their problems. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing your story, Ahmad Shah, and helping us learn more about you and your family and your country. We are honored to call you friend and have learned a lot from you. So after you meet your neighbors and you greet your neighbors, well, then what? Then it's time to listen and to learn. If you want to know what hand to eat with when you are asked to share a meal and you're sitting on the floor and realize there are no forks, then you just ask. If you want to know how to pick up that rice with your hand and deftly pop it into your mouth, ask. Want to know why they take off their shoes and when they enter their house? Just ask. Because if you ask questions about why they are doing the things they are doing, they will feel empowered to ask you questions about what you do. Because people are curious. They want to fit in, but they don't always have the confidence to ask questions. When you take an interest in them, they're going to take an interest in you. And hear my heart on this. These suggestions, they're not about making us look more like them or them look more like us, but about making people comfortable in their new home and opening a door to dispel a lot of myths they might have about Americans. A few that we've heard recently is that if you call 911, the police will take away your children. Now, that's a myth we don't want them to have. We want them to know that it's safe to call 911 and why you would do that. They've also told us recently that when your children turn 18, they have to move out of the house, that's like a law, that they have to live on their own. And they have heard that as well. That's why they're probably laughing. This might come from the way that Americans do leave home to attend college. We have the legal right to leave home when we're 18, but we don't have to. But this is a fear a lot of our refugee and immigrant friends have for their family because they don't want their children to leave home at 18. As you build a relationship and friendship with your new neighbors, there's often space in that relationship to ask about their journey story. Not always. People have different capacities. But many times, people are open to sharing about the hardships that they have faced and the trials that they have survived to arrive here. This validates their experience. It gives voice to their pain and their loss. Listen with empathy, not a desire to fix the situation or to offer solutions to the tragedy or compare their loss with others. There are a lot of reasons why people have landed in Fort Wayne, and some of them may surprise you. Ask them what happened, and then listen. Ask, how did it make you feel? And then listen again. And then ask, what was the hardest part for you? And I am stressing for you, because what may seem hard to one person is not hard to someone else. It's a very personal question. And we are constantly surprised by what people answer when we ask, what was the hardest part for you? When we listen with empathy and we suspend judgment, a more compassionate response is engaged. So suppose you are standing in a store waiting to pay the cashier, and there's a woman standing behind you. She might be a bit disheveled. She's speaking with a foreign accent, maybe not communicating well in English. She's not wearing traditional American clothing. In less than 5 seconds, somebody could probably draw conclusions about this person, and perhaps not very positive. Yet, if we catch ourselves and analyze our thoughts, we might reconsider. Maybe she has a very sick child at home and she needs medicine. Maybe she's just depressed and she's struggling with everyday tasks. Maybe she just lost her job that she really, really needed, and she couldn't find a ride to work, and she doesn't have her driver's license yet. By suspending judgment, we can keep our minds open to alternative explanations for what we see and hear, rather than assuming something immediately negative. Because the issue is not so much what may have caused her appearance, but what is my response to the stranger, whom God has created? If I allow negative attribution to take over, I'm inclined to ignore the woman's humanity and her true needs. But if I stifle a quick response and remain open, it becomes an opportunity for hospitality, a moment of grace, and maybe even healing. Many times, Heather and I have been out and about in the community, shopping at a halal store or a Burmese store, and we struck up a conversation with the lady shopping in the store. We once simply asked a woman where she was from, and she was so shocked that we were interested in her, that she immediately began to tell us of the suffering her family was enduring in Myanmar, and how hard it was not to be able to help them. How a neighbor of a family member still living there had been shot recently simply for opening the door to the military, and how all the young men are hiding in fear for their lives. We didn't have a solution to help her family get out of Myanmar or to stop the civil war that's going on. But we did have time to listen and to show compassion and hear and see this woman. To love people is to get involved in their lives, and that's messy. And it's complicated. But it's also joyful, it's delightful, and it's full of great new experiences.
So at iHouse, we like to find things that we have in common with people as a way to generate conversations and as a safe starting point for discussions. But we also recognize that our differences are part of what makes us all who we are and unique, and the ways that we think can be very different when you consider Eastern versus Western mindsets. One of the more dominant ones that we operate in the Western society is that the individual is most important. For example, we admire the self-made man. We value personal achievements over group efforts. We want validation for our own self, but not necessarily for a particular group. There's the American saying that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and in other words, whoever makes the loudest noise gets the most attention, and often that's the American way. On the other hand, in the East, family and community are often the most important, more important than the individual for sure. What the collective group thinks is more likely to matter the most. People living in the East often underestimate their own abilities rather than seeming overconfident, and they're less likely to insist that they need more compensation from a job. They can even be slow to complain about poor service or problems they're experiencing, such as here, like with rental homes or schools or things like that. And a great example of this is a Japanese proverb that says, "The nail that sticks out gets hammered down." So this is the complete opposite of what most American sayings would be. In other words, you would be criticized or cause a problem if you make a fuss. So this can lead to some of our new friends here not advocating for themselves or their needs as they might need to. Another big cultural difference can be seen in family structure, like Anne had talked about earlier, because family is extremely important in Eastern society, and particularly when it comes to living arrangements. In the West, we see it as a rite of passage for children to move out at a certain age. Getting your own place is a sign of independence, and whereas in the East, there's no need for the children to leave the family home. Many of our friends who are new to this country see living on your own as a strange choice to make. And this goes also for having elderly relatives. Family members care for the older generations in the East, but in the West, we often don't see caring for our elderly family as a responsibility. In the East, married couples usually do not move out of the family home. In fact, a newly married woman will go and live with the husband's family. So you'll find several generations often living together under the same roof. This means, again, that individuals may not have their own outward space and they have to compromise, but family comes first. One of the big benefits that we see of this is having multiple generations to help raise children. And it's one of the things we see lacking for a lot of the people that are resettled here. They're missing out on having those older generations teach the younger ones how to parent, how to cook, how to continue traditions of handcrafts and trades. And that's where we as a community can step in to help by becoming an extended family, perhaps even substitute aunties or uncles or grandparents. When it comes to education, the West is very much focused on individual achievement and fostering natural abilities. Students are encouraged to think for themselves, participation is the key, and students are seen to expect to challenge their teachers. In Western schools, students are given a lot of accommodations for learning styles, and we've gone so far as to implement the No Child Left Behind ideology. If a student fails, it's the school or institution who's blamed. However, in the East, every student is seen as equal and having the same chance at academic success, so long as they have the finances and the opportunity to go to school. Hard work is the way to attain success. In the Eastern worldview, discipline outweighs any academic problems the student might face. There are no other reasons for a student to fail other than their own failure. However, if they do, it definitely would not be the school's fault. And more than likely, it's seen to be down to the parents or the students. So for a lot of our refugee friends, education wasn't often available or affordable in their home countries. So here, it's seen as an honor to be able to attend school. And like my friend Ahmad Shah said, it's cheap, free, inexpensive, something, again, that we take for granted here. And another difference would be East versus West when it comes to the workplace. In Western society, you can walk into an office and you're likely to see a separate designated space for different workers. The manager has their own office. Other staff members are defined by the size and exclusiveness of their workspace. In factories, for most positions, you start at the bottom and you work your way up. And the only time for visiting would be meal times. But in the East, there would be a lot more of an open plan working with all levels of staff interacting because of often living closely together in community. And they would probably likely know each other and be friends, possibly even relatives. And another big difference that we know grieves many of our Muslim friends is that Western jobs don't offer the time to follow religious traditions such as Salat prayers. In many Eastern countries, though, it would be normal and customary, and oftentimes the entire staff performing those together. So keeping this idea of all the different ways of thinking in mind, it can be really helpful when you're meeting someone from another country for the first time. I know even for many of my own family members, when I share some of these differences, they're equal parts baffled and surprised and admit it's not things they've ever thought about or considered as to why it could be so challenging to resettle here in America. And there are many cultural differences that abound as well. We've tried to compile a list of some of them that we've encountered at iHouse. And I want you to keep in mind there is not an always or a never when it comes to these things. But it's some that we've picked up along the way and that we feel warrant being mentioned to help ensure a smoother entry if you're willing to go and meet your new neighbor. And it's what we've learned so far. And we like to stress so far because we're on a journey and we're always trying to learn something new about the cultures and traditions and practices of our friends who are new here to Fort Wayne.
Okay, so here's some ideas. You could try to smile and nod at somebody. Well, who wouldn't do this? That seems like a really easy one to say. Well, actually, a lot of people don't. If you've ever been a minority in a new place, you know some of the uneasiness and challenges, and we know a smile does not solve all the problems, but it does not hurt. You could try saying hello. Just strike up a conversation with someone. Why would you risk embarrassing yourself by opening your mouth to a stranger? Well, it can lead to some really amazing and fun conversations, and dying from embarrassment, it's actually quite rare.
Help out. Teach someone how to drive. Help them sort through their mail and figure out what all is in there, what's important and what's trash. Help them learn English. Help them rake their leaves. Honestly, even help them meet their neighbors. If you're a neighbor on one side but the other side might not have met them yet, make the introduction. I was at a home this fall with a newer family, and I noticed the neighbors outside, but no one was interacting, and so I became the bridge. I said, "Have you met this family? They're from Afghanistan. They have not been here very long." And they said, "Well, I see their kids outside playing, but I wasn't sure where they were from or if it was okay to talk to them." So they would love to talk to you. They just don't have really good English, but they can certainly say and understand, "Hi, how are you?" That's always a good first start.
You can speak up, but tread lightly. Use your own best judgment when facing people who are making incorrect and rude comments about immigrants and refugees. But do speak up, because there is a lot of misinformation that sometimes needs a polite, "Really? Do you think that is true?" when people make incorrect assumptions about refugees and immigrants or racist remarks. Speak up for your neighbors and their accomplishments and their achievements. Ask how to say their name, and don't be shy about trying to say it several times to get it right. We want to honor their names and not just settle for what sounds close. And again, it's not complicated, just what's your name? Nice. Does it have a special meaning in your language? Where are you from? Well, welcome. I'm glad you're here.
You can ask for a word or two in their own language. Ask them, how do you greet someone in your language, in your country? It only requires hearing a language that we don't understand, and most Americans would be saying, "Excuse me, could you speak up? What language is that?" But then you can say, "Tell me how to say hello. Tell me how to say thank you." Be willing to be awkward and make mistakes and laugh at yourself along the way, because honestly, that can break down a lot of barriers too. If we're willing to be humble and express that we don't know everything and we don't do everything right, that also gives people comfort because they're learning a new language as well. And English is really hard. Just trying to teach it is hard, so I can't imagine trying to learn it. If you think of read and read and present and how many different ways you can use just those couple words in so many different ways.
You can ask people where they're from, and if they tell you where they're from, follow up with it. Like, tell me more about it. What do you miss the most? What would you want me to see if I went there? We've been invited to a lot of countries just by asking those questions. Remember that greetings vary from culture to culture. Sometimes people will extend their hands. Sometimes men kiss the hands of ladies. Sometimes good friends do the two-sided kissing on the cheek. There's no set rule about how many times you go back and forth or which way to go first, but I always lean to the left first to avoid kissing someone on the mouth. It sometimes happens. Just be alert and try to accept what's offered and respond in an appropriate way. It's just very common that close friends and family may hug and kiss and backslap a little bit more than we do in America. And you can offer appropriate holiday greetings as well. If your neighbor is Muslim, you could say Eid Mubarak or Ramadan Mubarak. And make sure you check the calendar because these holidays change from year to year. But this is the kind of stuff you just Google and it'll come right up when the holiday is, even how to pronounce those words.
Consider if you know that someone that you're visiting is a Muslim and it's the woman that you're coming to visit and you're a woman. Knocking on the door could take time for an extra response. You could see kids peeking out the curtain and wonder, why is no one answering the door? That's likely because she's putting on her head covering or a hijab and also covering up her body with her robe so that she would be appropriate when answering. And if you have a male with you, you would want to let her know that someone would be accompanying you as well, just to help her feel comfortable. The most important thing we want to share is to seek to understand rather than be understood. We as Americans can be just so adamant that I want you to understand what I'm saying, so I'm going to talk louder. That's not going to help. Seek to understand the situation and what's going on and your new friend rather than to make your agenda be the top priority.
And remember, cultural differences, they're not necessarily wrong, they're just different. A few other practical things that we have discovered through the years is just take your shoes off when entering in the home. It's actually a really great habit, and I wish it would take off here more in America. It's way cleaner, and most other cultures always take off their shoes when they go in the home. Remembering that humor can be different in different cultures. So making fun of someone is not always a common way of joking in other countries. In America, we often use slang and maybe sometimes call someone something that seems unfriendly or cruel, but we get the joke and we knew it's actually an endearment, but that's not so with other cultures. And do remember that Afghans are not Arabs or Middle Eastern. Afghanistan is not located in the Middle East. It's a South Central Asian country composed of many different ethnicities, none of which are Arab.
And not everybody from Burma or Myanmar speaks Burmese. There are several languages and people groups and dialects in that country. There are over 135 indigenous ethnic groups in Burma, so don't just assume everyone from Burma speaks Burmese. Another thing is in many cultures, the woman does not take the husband's last name upon entering in marriage. She keeps her father's last name, but the children will take her husband's name. And in some cultures, the family will not all have the same last name at all. Everyone will have their own unique name. And sometimes that could be up to 5 names for each given child, and none of those are actually what the family calls them because they have a nickname besides that. So there's a lot of learning to do. Sometimes we keep a chart to keep track of who is who and what is their name, but what's the name that they go by, but what's the name that everybody calls them. But it can be fun too, and again, it's learning to say all those different names as well.
You may notice that sometimes Burmese people have like a pasty substance on their face, and that's called the naka. And it's just a cosmetic, and it's considered attractive, and it's also a sunscreen. It's very common for adults or children to use that. You might also see Burmese men and women wearing a longi, which is an ankle-length skirt and tied around the waist. And respect that in many cultures, men and women do not interact or sit together in community. There may be like a curtain or a door between men and women at gatherings, and just the little children will go back and forth.
It's common in many cultures for people to talk over each other when they're having a discussion. Sometimes their tone can sound harsh or angry to us, but it's not. It's just their language. It's just the way they're communicating. And oftentimes during greeting moments, we hear a lot of talking over one another, and that's just the normal way that they greet. For our Muslim friends, Ramadan is a time of fasting and family gatherings. And when you are trying to fast during daylight hours, that means you're probably up later to eat and to spend time with family and friends. So our friends are going to be more tired during the day. And they also do not eat pork. That's an important thing to remember if you're inviting someone over for a meal. They eat halal meat, which is similar to what you would think is kosher. So it's butchered in a certain way and blessed. So when you do invite them over, just consider that there might be some food differences. And we have an eagerness as Americans to do everything American style, but just maybe pull back a little bit and make sure that you're being culturally relevant with the people that you're serving.
And the one last thing we thought we would share with you is that newly arriving internationals, they can sometimes have an aversion to pets, specifically to dogs, depending on the situation in their home country and the culture of that country. So introducing your pet slowly is a good idea. Sometimes they do grow to love dogs, and sometimes they do not. It just depends on their experience with dogs in their past country of origin. So these were just a few of the things that we have gleaned as we've met with people. And like she mentioned, we still have a lot to learn. Our friend Aman Shah has been a wealth of information. And actually, I don't know if you knew you were willing to do this, but we think you're willing to help us answer more questions. So do you want to come up here and we can ask some questions?
Have a seat at the table here.
Do we have any questions?
My name is Edward, and I work at a place called Bonse, and it's right across from GM. So we work in association with GM supplier, and we get our work from them. We follow their schedule. They don't work, we don't work. But I've been there 6 years, February 2018, and when I first started, it was just regular Americans from Fort Wayne, New Haven, or Huntington. And now, over the last year or two, refugees are coming left and right. South America, Africa, and they work in my area, which is wonderful because I love ministering to internationals. So they're right next to me. But the questions I have, how can we as a company be ready for more? Because I know there's more coming, and they told us there's more coming. I mean, we had like 10, 12 people last week, and from different countries. And I reached out to my human resources. I made a packet of a visitor center downtown, and put some things together, things to visit, and it cost me 43 cents. And I got a positive feedback from HR. They want to continue that idea, which is good to hear. But it's something they need to do on their own, and hopefully they will do that. But how can we prepare better for that? Is my question, because they're coming. Yeah.
Well, for one thing, we would be happy to meet with your HR. We have what we call, like we started off with, an immigration network. So there's 4 organizations specifically that are working together to try to tackle these kind of things. And we would love to meet with anybody, any company that would like to be more culturally informed. Yeah. We would welcome that opportunity because we want the local businesses to recognize the differences and be ready. Like you said, Fort Wayne, we have many more people coming. They're in the works. Yeah. Yes. So just reaching out to any one of the 4 organizations that are here, and we would love to meet with them. Yeah. Yes. Thank you for the opportunity.
Other questions?
Hi. A concern that I have that sometimes people don't like to talk about is we need to learn which politicians are against immigration and not vote for them and get the word out to others and educate each other on how important this is, because as we know, and I don't have to name names, there are people who want to be in office or are already in office who are racist. And we need to be proactive.
I think you would get an agreement from us that we would appreciate people not being racist and being welcoming, for sure.
Each politician has their stance openly. So if you see that, what they're saying, each politician has their openly what they stand for. And if you see what they're saying is not right, then obviously you don't vote for them. But they're open. They're open.
I understand that, but most people in Allen County don't vote. On the primary, only 24% of registered voters voted.
Mhm.
And so it's very important that we educate ourselves and talk to each other and not just help
Right.
registered voters, but put people to the polls.
Right.
We go to the polls.
Right. Especially for next year, 2024. It's a very important year. Yeah. Yeah, share with your neighbors why it's important to vote. Because you want people to vote.
I think we have another question.
Well, moving away from specific politicians necessarily, I was really interested in seeing what we can do to engage immigrants and refugees that have become actually citizens of the United States to vote. Do you have any activities, or is there anything that we can do to help them become voters?
That's a good question, and we could probably do some thinking on that. I know at International House, when it is time for elections, we make sure that we talk about it, and our programs, our women's programs that we have, make sure that they're hearing it in their native language so they understand it's time to vote. And so we actively promote the practice of voting there.
And I think it is an education thing, because in many countries, they don't have the freedom like we have. And so it's informing them that this is important, and how can we help you understand it better. And again, I think this is another topic that's great for our immigration network to discuss further. How can we help our friends and get the word out?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could comment specifically with our Afghan friends. We've never had a conversation about their role in, with the U.S. military in their country. And I guess I'm just wondering, obviously we could ask and, let them answer if they want to, but is that a kind of a sensitive topic? Is that something to be avoided? Is that, is there any thoughts about, and maybe Ahmad Shah, maybe he has some thoughts on that as well, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to involve in politician, but one thing I have to say, it doesn't matter like Afghanistan, United States, or any corner in the earth. We just like and vote for those people that they should be honest for their country, for their people. The one reason everyone here, this is a fact why the Afghan government collapsed and Taliban took over all Afghanistan. The reason was clear. The corruption was, everyone was thinking about himself and his family. No one was honestly work for our country. As a soldier, I have seen many people when I visit different offices. When you see the people, even they cannot read and write, but they give a high responsibility. When you give them a paper, please sir, can you perform and correct my name? My name is wrong, and the bank closed my salary. It doesn't come, it's almost 2 months. Correction of the name on the computer, it takes 2 months, but it takes actually a few seconds. Clear and type correct name, just save it and update it. The reason is corruption. If you have honest people in any environment, just they shouldn't think about themselves. They should think about other people. When you take responsibility, you have to do it. Everyone is responsible in this community. Father is responsible for their kids. Mother is responsible for their kids. Teacher is responsible for his class. This we can do our responsibility. Everyone do their responsibility. But the reason was corruption, and everyone was thinking about himself, not for the country. If you work for our country, we will be better, our country will be better, and we will have a good future for our kids and for next generation. That's my idea.
Do you think it would be okay for someone to ask someone that had been in the military to share their story? Would you think that would be okay?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like they share your experience and their story, what was going on the fight. Everywhere was the fight. Fight, like it was. Each country there is a cause why the fighting is and what is the fight for. Like, if you study the history, there are many reasons, like Afghanistan, why it's always there is a fight, back and forth, back and forth. This many decades, the fight is still there. As a center, everyone want to have access there. Russia many times tried to have access that. Like other countries, like when we have a good economy, it has a negative effect for our neighbors. That's why the neighbors involved and don't want us to have a good economy, because if you have a good economy, they lose their currency and everything, their business. They have a negative effect on them. But if you ask like any Afghans, other people, if they are a soldier, about their experience and about, it doesn't matter. They share their own experience, but the reason of fight is, there are many reasons for fighting. People, the other people, maybe they know better than me, because I was not a soldier in fighting. I was just a soldier on training and learning to be a good maintainer for helicopter and to help the pilots. That was my job. I never have been in a fighting.
It's our experience with speaking with our Afghan friends thus far that if you ask and they want to share, they will share openly. And again, it helps them process what has happened to them and validates it. They sometimes show pictures from things that have been happening to their families and in their community, and it brings awareness to it. And so far, the people that we've asked, if they're just not ready to share, you can tell on the look on their face, and they just say, not now. It's always worth asking if you have a heart to hear.
Any more questions? Or I would also ask if people have comments on great welcoming experiences that they just want to share.
This question is for Ahmad Shah. I wanted to ask about your idea for the sports competition. You mentioned that you thought there should be more sports. I didn't know if you meant like opportunities for immigrants to play sports, or if you had something in mind, a specific sport or like a structure. I just wondered if you could comment about that.
Yes, thank you so much for asking that. If we encourage people to grow many different sports, we have other kind of sports in Afghanistan, but we never hear here. It's in Fort Wayne. We have good places to play the sport, but if you want to grow and invest on them more and more, it should be better for, especially for immigration people. They have their own different kind of sports in their country. But I was mentioning that because if a family stay their home forever, never participate in any other activities, the life will be boring for them. Just make any amusement for the refugees. It's any kind of sports. We just want to grow them. And if family see and participate in different match and sports and see different teams play together, it's helped for people to have a happy life. We just make an entertainment for refugees.
Our kids camp that we have at International House was kind of birthed out of the fact that we saw many children at home during the summer with nothing to do, and maybe not feeling comfortable to even go explore their neighborhood. And so an alternative to that is we've developed a kids camp that is free for the refugee children to come to, but we know there are many that we don't, have contact with and ways to get them there that would benefit greatly from having other activities within the community that they could participate in. So that's a good question.
Yeah, I have a neighbor that's looking for a job. He's from a Latin American country, and I don't have time to go find him a job, Is there a resource, somebody I could ask that knows who's hiring and how to get him there?
Well, you're welcome to talk to us about that, Randy, and then if we can't help them, we can refer to one of the other agencies that are in the network as well. We are not a job placement agency by any means, but as you build a relationship with somebody, a lot of times employment questions do come up. There are a lot of factors that go into helping somebody get a job depending on what kind of status they have, what kind of work permits they have. But you're welcome to introduce them to us, and then we can pass them off to the next person, Amani, or whomever might be able to help them.
That was a great explanation. Amani Catholic Charities are not job placement agencies, but we work with a lot of companies that do hire folks that we help. As you said, some of it will depend on status and things like this and what kind of job they're looking for. But Catholic Charities is also another good general number. Amani is also another good place that will have maybe contacts. Again, we don't necessarily have job placement services, but we do have contacts. And companies do reach out to us regularly. Amani, I'm sure, too. I'm going to speak for Evelina since she was gone, but now she's walked back in, so no. But, there's a lot of resources in Fort Wayne, a lot of organizations, nonprofits that can help people when they're in that situation.
Another question here.
Mr. Shaw, you mentioned you're Afghan. Are you at peace right now? Is there a war going on with your country presently? I know Russia is close by you, and Russia and Ukraine, but is that affecting you, your country?
It's not close, but now we don't have any kind of fighting, but only people suffering. There was for 20 years fighting before, but still it's a little bit quiet, but people mostly suffer from poor economy. No one has job, nothing. They just, it's very complicated to think about how the people support themselves, how they spend their life there. It's very suffering, and most people trying to get out from the country. If most of the 80% of the young generation, they travel to neighborhoods and to other countries. Yeah, it's because of bad economy we have now.
Understanding the situation in Afghanistan is its own little meeting, its own workshop. It would take a long time to talk about that.
There's time for one more question. We'll take the last question in the back. Run around.
So you've mentioned a lot about how our neighbors are the people that we're supposed to be reaching to, but not all of us live in a neighborhood where there's an immigrant or refugee living in the house next door. So what do you recommend for meeting our immigrant and refugee friends that are in Fort Wayne?
Well, you can, there's, again, all these 4 different organizations that are part of this immigration network. All of us have ties into the community and ways that you can get involved and volunteer. And even just supporting the work that we do as a nonprofit, that can be tricky. So we are always looking for financial support, prayer support, and just volunteers. So anyone that's at a table over there, I'm sure would welcome the opportunity to have a volunteer sign up, and that goes for us as well. Job or volunteer opportunities, just driving someone to a program, to a job that can go all the way to teaching them English or being a family advocate for them. There's a variety of ways to get involved and help. So that was a great question. Thank you.
I want to just thank everyone on our panel for, you've enlightened me, and I'm sure many of the people in the room. So thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, thank you for coming today.